What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Seams, where we bring hitters and pitchers together to talk about the game so it can grow. I'm really excited about this episode. You're going to love it. Let's get going. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of Inside the Seams, where we bring hitters and pitchers together to just get better as baseball players. So we got our man Joey Lewis back for part two. Really excited to just continue to jump into things. Joey just offers such a cool perspective on a lot of things. And it starts from just being an awesome human. And then that just trickles down to everything that he touches and does. So if you haven't watched part one, go hit that up and put this in the queue. So Joey, really excited to have you back, man. So for people that haven't seen part one, just give kind of a quick bio on yourself, and then we'll jump in and get going.
Yep. Born and raised in Georgia. I live here in Nashville now. Played 3 years at the University of Georgia and then played 4 years professionally with Kansas City. Didn't make it past high A. And good old Wilmington, Delaware. Moved to Knoxville after that. Coached at Maryville College for a year and did lessons under Nate Headley, who was on here earlier, at RBI, before making the trip over to Nashville and opening up the Hit Lab.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's I love it. Yeah, your journey is cool, man. I actually kind of want to get into some of that, just like all the stuff that you've learned from the playing stuff, right? Because I know when we've talked about a lot of that, there's just been a lot of really cool nuggets in there and stuff. So, but yeah, man, just we were kind of talking about last time, right? A lot of like the coach's perspective and the coach's role, and right, we kind of ended part one talking a little bit about just like catchers calling the game, and just kind of shifting from coaches having to feel like they have to control everything, right? So I think you've got a really good perspective on that, right? We kind of talked about last time how you were saying like, hey, when you succeed, right? I'm here to help build. I'm part of the squad, right, that gets you there and stuff. And so so yeah, kind of talk about just a little bit about just like kind of where that perspective maybe came from a little bit, right? Whether it was like kind of your time as a player, right? Because you've kind of done all the things, right? Like played at a high level, certain levels, right? And then like, doing the coaching, but then doing the one-on-one and your bit on the meeting with the high school coaches and the college coaches is just so uncommon, right? So where did that kind of just perspective of letting go of control, right? And then just like, partnering with people and just kind of, yeah, where did all that come from, and why are you passionate about it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that it really, if I'm being honest, it didn't start until I really got into coaching and as a business owner. Kind of noticing that as I made my way around of working for different guys, understanding that I take pieces of what people did that I like and what people did that I didn't like, right? So that's kind of how I'm starting to mold A as a coach and B as a business owner. Is I'm like, hey, I really liked what this facility did. I think I'm going to take that and apply that to our guys because I think it can help them. I think we're missing this piece. They have that piece. I'm going to bring that with us. I don't necessarily like the way they did that, so I'm not going to do it. Doesn't matter. I'm moving on, And it's understanding what applies to you and what applies to the people around you, right? So it's finding, kind of searching for those nuggets that are like, that is genius. I'm stealing that. I'll tell people it's yours and I stole it. I got no problem with that because I think it's awesome, right? And it's having, I can call it no ego to be able to go, that is really good. I didn't come up with it. Doesn't matter. I'm going to take it, right? I'm going to apply it to my guys. And it's, I think realistically, it's getting out of the player mindset and more into the coaching mindset. I don't have to come up with ideas. I just got to find ideas that other guys did and make it ours so I can play it. And so it took a while bouncing around, understanding what, when I was a student assistant at Georgia, when, then I was the volunteer assistant at Maryville College and doing lessons, so the blend of doing on-field stuff for college and then, small group stuff for college and then having to go and do lessons, being able to kind of blend those and merge those to where now I can see, all right, this is what we're doing in a cage to now apply on the field. You know, being able to take everything as a whole and then find the, you know, the seasoning that you want to put on it.
Yeah, I
You
love
know, I
that.
think that's kind of where it all kind of started from. And it took a while. It took,
Mm.
you know, I did it this way, you know, it worked, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now I
You
got to
say
find
too,
what works
that's
for
a
you.
growth mindset, right? Like you're having a growth mindset in that situation.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're continuing to grow so your athletes can continue to grow.
Absolutely. And
Kind of
that's
what I'm
what a big
hearing.
thing, like going to do these camps, you know, and traveling to do these camps or working with different organizations and different coaches. I learned more about hanging around the coaches and just talking to the coaches than I hope I can pass some of that along to the players. You know, so that way, like we went and ate dinner, like just talked and walked through everything that we're doing, what we're doing in our different cities and how it applies in our different cities and what we can do to different hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Or players or athletes, however you want to look at it. It's being able to open everything up. Like I said, it's growth, but it's you got to be open enough to communicate to grow.
Mm.
And I think I personally was stuck in that kind of seclusion a little bit when I first started coaching. You know, especially when I got out of kind of the team game and got more into the private sector. You know, it took a minute to really go, okay, this isn't right. You know, and being able to admit that, like I'll be the first one to tell you that I know more now that I did when I first started, right? And I'm sure I messed a couple hitters up along the way, but being able to go, hey, dude, I know we did this. I apologize, but let's do this instead, right? And it's being able to have their trust where they're like, I agree, let's do it, let's roll with it, let's see what happens, or admit to them, be like, hey, I've never done this before. Let's get really weird and let's try this. And if it doesn't work, let's just throw it away. Let's do something else, right? If it does work, boom, let's keep it. You know, and they have to trust you,
right?
and you have
Weird.
to be upfront, and they have to trust you to do it. Like we're gonna feel something really weird right here, but I want to show you what it's doing. You know, and or this we're gonna try this, you get that. Like you know, just because your feel and real doesn't match, our job is to bridge that. You know, being able to open that up, and if there's no trust, if there's no communication line, you'll never. Because what all they're going to do is they're going to go back to their parents and be like, yeah, he wants me to do this. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do it then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but if they're on board and they kind of trust the whole process of it, then you're good.
I love that.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I think, I think that's just such a key thing, right? Of just like, and I think you're exactly right. It starts with the trust, starts with the relationship aspect of it, right? Because it's like, yeah, and then the communicating of it, right, too, because it's like, hey, like I like, and I know we've talked about this, right, but it's like, hey, like I have no idea, like being able to say to a kid, I have no idea how we're gonna fix this, but like, hey, like I see something, let's try this. I don't know if it's gonna work, but like I know this isn't gonna work, but it's gonna help us get to a point where we'll find what works, right? You know, and like being able to look at a guy and be like, hey, try this for 4 swings or try this for 4 pitches. And if it's completely throwing you off, there's a trash can. Leave it right there. We'll find something else,
Yeah.
right? And I think that that's just it's detaching yourself, right? It's removing yourself from the answer giver to, hey, we're finding a solution, right? I'm not the source of the solution. I'm the, hey, I don't know. Like I know what I see. I know what you're telling me, but like everything that we're working on, it ain't working. So like we got to dig in and we got to find it. You know, and just like I know I've had guys where like, man, we've just been working on the same thing over and over and over and over again, like different ways, doing all this other stuff. I'm like, man, I'm gonna call somebody. We're gonna FaceTime. I'm gonna FaceTime somebody right now. Like, hey, what do you see? This is what's going on. This is what I'm working on. This is what he's feeling. What do you see? And because really, right, it just goes back to what you were talking about last time, right? Where it's we're an entity, whether it's a large entity or a tiny entity or somewhere in between, it doesn't matter. It's the, hey, we got to find a solution. I'm not in the business of 4 steps get you to here, right? Because it doesn't work that way, right? And so I think that's
no cookie cutter, right?
there isn't cookie cutters are for even within cookie
Or
cutters.
Cookies, yeah, they are.
There's variance, right? Like there's variance within it, and so yeah, I just love that. Yeah, I love that, and I think that that's something that's especially in the private sector because there's so much one-on-one time. I think that that's a symptom of it, right? And I think that's, I think in the game today, there's a little bit of a loss of a feel for the game, right? These kids, when I say kids, like lower, like younger college age and below, right? They can break down a swing. They can tell you what it's supposed to look like. They can tell you all of those things like crazy because there's so much information out there, right? But then the feel for the game is just not as much there, right? For who knows what reasons. There's a bunch
They
of
need to play
possibles.
more wiffle ball.
They do. I mean,
100%.
I was gonna say that, right?
100%.
We used to play the side yard, man. Like I could figure out how to do different stuff with my body because I had to hit the ball over here to get more points, or I had to hit over there, whatever it was.
Or maybe
right?
you tried to be Ken Griffey Jr. on a swing, and then
100%.
hey, I'm gonna be Julio Franco, or
100%.
like some old names for me, but like
No, that's right.
you would try things, and I feel like that's what you're talking about too. It's like it's easy to detach when I say, hey, I'm gonna be Nolan Ryan on this one, and I'm gonna, boom, or hey, I'm gonna whatever, Bob Feller. But then it's like, okay, if that fails, then you're like, okay, that definitely in no way is gonna work. You can throw it out with less attachment versus like if they have this cookie cutter approach that they're so attached, no, I have to swing like this. And it's like, do you? Like, or I have to throw it like this. It's like some days you just make stuff up out there.
Mm-hmm.
And as a pitcher, if I get you out, I don't care, versus like, I think as a hitter too, it's like, hey, if you get a hit, we all said it back in the day, but it's like, it looks like a line drive in the scorebook tomorrow. Nobody knows it was a little flared out, but you battled and you made an adjustment in pitch adjustment, not just a between pitch adjustment. It was like you were off balance, but you still got your head out somehow, or and that's
you made an athletic move.
Like you don't have, you were an athlete.
That's right.
Yeah, it's perfect. I love that. We do that all the time. It's like, especially when you get in the cage and you can see them like information overload, and you can just see them almost lock up, and it's like, okay, I call it chapter to chapter hitting. It's like, all right, now step one, I've got to load. Okay, now I've got to step, and it's like, all right, whoa, back it up. Who's your favorite hitter? All right, cool. Beat him. Let's go. Home run derby. You got 10 pitches, no mechanics. Let's see how far you can hit a ball. And then we'll back it back in. And you'll be like, all right, now cool. There's your athlete in you. Now let's start to talk about it. Now what can we apply that to? Right. And it's not, it's not that we're just trying to limit you. It's like you're limiting yourself by getting so mechanical and robotic. Like, move. You want to move. Let's just find a way to get you moving more efficiently.
100%. And I think that
realistically, I don't care what you do as long as you can swing when you want to swing, and there's no movement in between that. Where we get in trouble is when guys are ready to swing, they think they're ready to swing, but then they have to move, and then they can swing.
That's right.
That's when they lose.
I like that.
That's right.
I like that.
That's right. When I think too, like part of the job of a coach or anybody like that, right, is so, when I do stuff, right, like the further on we move back towards the cage, right, get to a machine or get to arm, like the less I say, because it's not my time. We can break it down right here. We can discuss a feel, when I'm on the tee or I'm doing whatever to get ready. But the further I move back, the less I talk, right? And all I try to do really is subconsciously give them breaks, but then also like celebrate them when they make a good move and they don't get a perfect result, right? And I think too, like what's super important is the ability to like, the body naturally knows, like if you're training it well, right, it's trying to figure out how to do it, right? Take the thought and make it a reality. And a lot of times the body will do things like to correct it, right? So like I had a guy that like he liked to be close up on the plate, right? And he started closed, and so we were trying to like fill his hips doing the stretch so he could do this, that, and the other. Well, his body naturally backed himself off the plate, and then he would like stride a little bit open with his foot, but his hip would stretch still, right? And he had no idea what he was doing, right? His body was just figuring out what worked with his chemistry. And so I felt like my job was, hey, like you're in a good place right now. Keep doing what you're doing. This is what's happening. This is like, as far as the information, this is what's producing. You're producing what you want. So stay there. Keep doing what you're doing, right? Because like that's going to translate, because when you get in the game, right, it just goes back to a different place in the brain, right? You go back to what you know, you go back to what you trust, and you just battle, right? So I think it's really important for people to be able to like, hey, like your battle part is producing really good things right here. So like stay with that thought, or, like even watching a kid struggle, right? And, like him making a move, it's the wrong move. He gets there, he hits it, but then his body corrects it right at right after. It's like, hey, like, well, that's good. That's progress, right? Because like this whole, like, we're going to feel good when we leave the cage, it's just not a reality, right? We want to like have things to move towards. I think a goal is, right, like, hey, now you know what it should feel like more. Right now you understand it a little bit more. So now your job is you're going to be with yourself a whole lot more than we were just with each other for the 60 or 90 minutes. So like now you know what to go work on and then come back. Right. And I think that, a lot of people are just insecure, right? And then I think they need to put their stamp on them. And it's like, I always got to have the fix. I always got to have always got to add something in there. It's like most times, like, you don't need to say anything a lot of times, right? I think Zing does a really good job of that. He'll just be like, what was that? I was scale 1 to 10. Okay, 7. Why was it an 8? Okay, well, throw an 8 this time.
I think it helps them digest it too that way, where it's like, I'll get guys on the mound and it's like, okay, what'd you feel there? And they're like, I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, right? But they don't know what they feel yet. So it's like, okay, take everything you feel, the outcome of the pitch, and give me a number between 1 and 10. We're looking for 8s and above is our goal. But what is the easy versus like, hey, what's the adjustment? It'll be like, oh, did I pull off? It's like, well, yeah, usually, you started to throw before you landed. That would probably be the number one fix from what I see is like, we have to land before we throw. But if we're thinking about landing before we throw, are we going to execute a pitch? So it's like getting them outside of their own head so that they're actually focused on what matters, which is what does a good pitch look like? Not how do I throw a good pitch? We have to get past how do I do it? It's like, no, what does a good pitch look like here? And then execute it.
Yeah.
And if you execute it, great. If you don't, you better still act like you executed it because he might have swung.
That's right.
It's like guys get frustrated in the bullpen sometimes. And I'm like, hey, I get it. But the average major league pitch misses its spot by 11 inches. That's a major leaguer. So for every time he dots up, somebody else is missing by 2 gloves, 3 gloves, and it's like, okay, so instead act as if you hit your spot, act like that's where you wanted the ball to go. And then if we can digest easily and move each pitch is a new game, we can say, hey, that was an 8. Okay, next one, breath. We're moving into that next one. And it's, it's what you were talking about, Joey, with the chapters, right? If they get up there and it's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, like we're in big trouble today, boys.
That's right. That's
right. We better talk about backing up bases is what we
go get somebody loose.
You better know where to go after you throw the ball.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, especially if they miss younger pitchers, especially if they miss in to a hitter. The hitter will panic every time and go back to the dugout and be like, oh, he's throwing me in. I can't, everything's in, right? He goes, well, let's make sure he actually did that on purpose. Then we can make our adjustment.
Yeah, did he look down or did he stare it in there like he actually meant to do that?
Right. I like that.
And that's why I'm
stealing that.
Right?
Yeah. I'm stealing
that. Yours, baby. Hey, no, that's mine. I made it up. I stole it from somebody else, probably.
That's like, funny.
Good coaches learn from other good coaches. That's why we do what we do. It's
that's
like
right,
I think, especially if you empty your cup on a daily basis, it's like there's a lot we can learn in life. And it's like I can learn stuff from even not baseball people sometimes, where I'm like, oh man, that's really good. How could that help my guys? Versus like if you go around running around like you already got all these answers, it's like you never even hear what somebody said.
That's right. Well, I think I think I love what y'all were saying. It's so good. There's a piece about that I want to bring out. So John was saying, when it's an 8, okay, I want you to breathe that in, visualize it, and then go, right? So I don't want people to miss that. So an example, right, to kind of land that was, there's one of the guys, one of my favorite people in the baseball world, he was talking about this, like the visualization, right? Because it's like super popular right now for people to talk about, and for good reason, right? It just, sometimes I don't feel like it's given enough context, right? And so he said, you should only be thinking about a couple things, like as you're walking up, right? And he said, one of the things that, if you're going to visualize, that you need to visualize is what a hit looks like, what a good hit looks like to you, right? Or what a good pitch looks like. And like that should be one of the last thoughts that you have, right? Because now you've given your brain that hey, we've given it that problem or that idea. Hey, now we're going to produce that. And then, you take that and then you couple it with the Brian Kane thing, right? Where those guys take the bat, they look at a spot in the bat, they breathe in their thought, whatever it is, right? And a lot of times I think for Texas A&M, they do breath, feel, go, right? And so I think it's the ability to be, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or here's my hit, here it is to right center, I can see it right now, here's how I'm going to swing, let's go. And I think it's just, because then when he talks about it, right, it's a whole lot of like, there's nothing else after that point, right? It's shut off, right? I'm breathing, I'm visualizing, this is how I'm going to swing, now I get in, I'm not thinking about anything else. It's the last thing you do before you get in the box, right? And so I think that's huge, right? Because
I'd say that's the anticipation part of it, right?
Yes.
Because like when you said like making it clear, like, okay, there's a lot of things we could visualize, right? Like I could sit here and visualize sitting in the mountains right now in Peaceland, but I could also, like, we had this talk yesterday. Most pitchers are trying to get to strike one, right? So we were talking with a couple of the hitters, and it was like, so when you go up there, what are you looking for? And it's like, I would be looking for a fastball that's a strike, and I would absolutely hammer it if that was my approach. If I knew the pitcher was just trying to get ahead, versus like if you're pitching again, you're facing Justin Verlander, it's going to be a little bit different than if you're not just going to see first pitch fastballs every time. But at the lower levels, especially college, I had a college coach in here, we were talking about it, and he's like, so many guys go up there and they think they have a big league approach because they listen to a big leaguer say he takes the first pitch. Or I think he used the example of Ted Williams yesterday. Ted Williams, a lot of times, I guess, would wait. And I was unaware of this, but he would wait for strike one. So like, as a pitcher, obviously that changes the game for me too. So it's like, if we can go up there and we're playing chess at the lower levels, I would take the chance that 90% of guys are trying to throw fastballs down and away to start the at bat. And use that to your advantage, where it's like, if I was a gambler, I'm not, but if I was, and we're playing poker and I know what kind of hands can beat what kind of hands, I have an advantage, versus like if I'm just going in blind and it's completely different, So it's like, as the chess match or whatever you want to call it goes on between that pitcher and the hitter, there's a lot more going on than most people see. So if I just go up there visualizing, like you were talking about, right? It's like, if I can anticipate what I want to have happen, a lot of times it happens, versus like if I go up there and I'm thinking about chapter hitting and I'm going, I got to do this, this, and this. It's like, dude, you might as well just hand the bat to the next guy.
That's right. And I think that's why so many big leaguers' cues are like so simple, right? And then people take that to the left, they take it to the right, whatever it is, right? In my opinion, it's faulty both ways, right? Because it's like, you have no idea what that means to them.
How he got there. Yeah, how he simplified that.
You have no idea what that means, right? Because like, one of the things that we work on a lot is like the last 15 minutes, like we're simplifying it down into 1 to 3 words. That's all they have, right? And like, so if somebody on the street would hear that, they would have no idea what that means, right? Or like, start early. That could mean literally, you take 1 million people, it means 1 million different things, right? And so
Let
I
it
got,
get deep. Yeah, some guys
yeah,
say let it get
whatever
deep,
that
and
whatever
you have
that
no
means,
idea what
right?
that means.
Javi Baez says let the ball get deep, and I've never seen him hit the ball the right side in the
He
game
holds
ever.
everything.
Yeah. So this is right along the lines. I did a like big kind of hitting talk for a varsity, JV, and freshman team all at once. High school just down the road, and I handed out note cards, and I did almost this exact same thing. And I was like, all right, 5 minutes. I need your note cards back. All I asked was, what does stay back mean? And I don't know if I got one that was the same in 3 teams. There might have been some that were similar, but it was so drastic. And that's something that you hear, go to one tournament and you're going to hear by the time you walk from the gate to the field, somebody's going to say, stay back. But nobody
Every
knows what it
hitter
means.
sometimes, right?
So it's different for
100%.
everybody.
They say the same thing to every guy.
And that's the worst. That's the worst, man. Like if on-field coaches could understand nothing else, but if you'll learn an individual cue for each hitter, like your team, like every offensive category will go up. Every single one. I know it for a fact.
I love that idea, Joey, because that's something I even do as I'm coaching. Is I keep cards or paper or whatever, and I'm going through, and it's like, okay, what was that feeling? And then I write it down. But it's like I've been making a list. We kind of call it like we joke, it's like a whiteboard. It's like you could look up there and say, okay, which one of those is yours? Because there's like 12 ways to say the same exact thing, but it means something completely different. So if I have 12 guys to each guy, so it's, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. That's how I'm gonna start kickstarting every camp.
Yeah.
Every camp, hand out a note card. You can ask them any question. You can be anything you want, and you're going to get 1,000 different answers. You know, stay back was just the easiest one. And it was the first time I ever did like a speech for a team. So I kind of panicked.
Oh, that's great.
Stay back, man.
I love that. No, that's awesome. Honestly, I'd use that one because it's said
so much.
Well, it's like that.
Too, right?
Stay inside the ball or get your foot
on
out.
top. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Sure.
Yeah, just like
I'm gonna throw this ball off my foot now. That's
facts. You know, I love that. That's so great. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
I would say the biggest phrases that I go to on field when I was really coaching on field was so what, learn from it, move on.
That's right.
You're gonna make mistakes, so what? Just understand why and move on. You know, it happens. He swung on a bad pitch. Go watch a game tonight. He's going to swing on a bad pitch. So what? You know, learn from it, move on.
That's just a reset.
So what? Who cares next? Is the same plan, but it's like you have to teach them, because especially kids. Let's go back to kind of what we talked about with the private sector, right? Where it's like, okay, you have a new kid that's one-on-one. Let's just paint a scenario. His parents are there, they're watching. You're watching. The kid wants to do great, right? They put all this pressure on themselves, and then they go and you can see it. It's like, so what? Who cares next? It's like you came in with a little needle and you pop that balloon and everything. It's okay, right? Versus like you can just see it build and build and build, and you can see a lot of times where it's like, I think people that are new to instruction, they think that it's a oil change, where it's like, okay, I'm going to bring the kid in, you're going to fix them, and then we're going to go back and do whatever. And it's like, this is a process. I'm here as a guide. I'm teaching you how to be your own best coach. I'm teaching you to play each pitch like it's a new game, so you can learn how to make adjustments. And that's at the beginning. Once we get going, can you make in-pitch adjustments? Where it's like, oh, you lost your balance a little bit, but you still refined it. Or, you know, you get asked out on or butt out on a curveball, and you still get a piece. You know, you fight for another pitch, or, you know, there's so many little things where it's like the levels that we look to take guys, it's ownership. You know, I think we talked about that last time too, right? And then personal ownership starts to become leadership, because then you start to pass that stuff on to teammates or to younger guys, or, you know, like we were talking before about the connection between pro guys and college guys down to our high school guys, and how that can affect, you know, your business or your clan, whatever we got here. We got our tribe, Fuel Factory Chuckers up in here, whatever. It's like, how can I learn from this guy for myself, you know? And I think that's, as our athletes do that, they can exemplify what hopefully we're exemplifying, which is, hey, we're here to learn too.
Mhm.
You know, that's why we're doing this. I'm learning, you know, from Cam and Joey today, and I'm now, when you come in here and you got whatever the big bopper up here and you're watching, you really like his swing, maybe ask him a question when he's done. Hey, what do you feel right there? Or hey, what's that? Why do you do that? You know, and then all of a sudden it just opens up all of that good stuff that we're talking about, and then it all trickles down, and it's like they start to find ownership. They start to be leaders on their teams. They start to be the kind of guys that we're like, yeah, that guy trains with me.
That's good. I love that.
So I'll have anywhere from even if it's a 7-year-old to a pro guy break down his own swing. And I was like, listen, there is nothing, you're not going to say anything wrong. Right. So my job is not to teach you your swing. My job is to open the doors to communicate your swing. So if I got to teach you your swing using Fortnite, I'll do it. Doesn't matter. Right. Like, our job is to relate on something on bigger than baseball and swinging. Because if I can get you out of baseball mode and get you into athlete mode and get you opening up a little bit, then you start making baseball moves.
That's
you know,
right.
so I'll have he'll be 7. We'll use hit track, so he'll look at the video and he'll have to pick out 1 or 2 things. Like, I don't care if it's right, I don't care if it's wrong, I don't care if it's just like, ew, that looks weird. That's fine, that works. Because now it gives me something that when we go back to look at video, I'm going to pick out that weird thing that you saw, and we're going to work with that, because that's what registered with you. You know, you might not see pelvic tilt at a 7-year-old, right? But if you're like, ew, what's my knee doing? Like, cool, boom, there's our fix. All right, so now let's talk about what the knee is doing, and let's talk about what it should do. You know, so and using it that way, it's like, I'm not going to teach you. We're going to communicate. I'm not going to give you homework. It's up to you to do it, right? I can help you if you want to ask me what you should do. I will then guide you, but I'm not going to give you a to-do list. That's not my job.
I love that.
You have my number. You can text me, you can send me video. You can do me whatever you want, because all that does is show me that you're working outside of what we do, and that you really start caring about what you're doing.
That's right.
Not that, you know, oh, coach told me I need 50 swings after tee today. Okay, well, now you're just wasting time and balls. You know, so it's opening that lineup where it's like, ooh, I really want to be good at this. What does it take?
Yeah, I love that. With it. I love that, and I think one of the things I love about that is the waiting for them to ask, right, and not forcing. Because I think people understand this concept that I'm about to share at a rudimentary level, but like, I heard this guy talk about this and it just blew my mind. He said the brain will not accept, almost 100% of the time, the brain will not accept unsolicited advice, because it feels like an attack, right? And it hits an insecurity, or it moves down the brainstem, and it gets to fear, right? And he was like, so don't assume people want your advice every time they talk to you, or they want lunch, or they want this, or don't assume that they want your advice. They may just want to run something by you. They may just want you to watch that. But he was like, if you'll wait to be invited in, they'll listen, because the brain will be in a completely different frame. But if you don't, right, it won't. And he was talking about it in the sense of like relationships and marriage and stuff like that. But I was like, that's true everywhere.
I think that's huge.
100%, right? Where it's like, and so it's just that posturing, right, of like, and it's so hard as a human when you see something that's wrong to not fix it, right? But at the same time, it's like,
dude,
say, well, dude, that's facts. Problem solvers, right?
How
like,
we're wired. Yeah.
Like, I screwed that up earlier this week bad with my wife. So like, I mean, I ain't there yet, right? So it's like, but it's just one of those things where it's like the invitation gives you permission to have a say-so in that person's life, right? And so the just confidence, I don't even know, just the wherewithal to just hold on to it knowing that they're gonna ask, but they need to do it in their way and their timing, whatever it is. Because that, as soon as you get an invitation, you're in, right? And so I think that part was really key. What you're saying, Joey, is like, I'm not gonna tell them what to do. I'm not gonna say, hey, you got to do these 4 things. If they ask, then I'll guide, then I'll assist, right? But it's like, that's just a completely different posturing. So it's like, well, hey, on this one, you were doing this, and then like going into a swing, right? That happens all over the country. But then if you'd stop and ask the kid, they may have said, man, I felt good on this one. Felt really good on this one. And or that pitch felt great, right? But it's like, so now we've negatively associated a good swing in the brain. So I'm not going to move like that now.
I feel like you see that too with new guys. Sometimes you can tell how they've been coached. If they automatically assume that you say something, it's a negative. And I get that. I just had a new kid in the other day, and I asked him a question, and you could tell he was defensively, and I was like, no, that's a question. Yeah. In no way, shape, or form was I trying to tell you anything. I was actually asking you. And then I have to explain to him where it's like, okay, I see what I see. I've done this for 18 years. Okay. I've worked with over 165 major league pitchers. I've learned as much from them as they've ever learned from me. And the day I stop learning, I'm done. Like, I'm going to do something else. Right. And that'll never happen. But anyways, with the new kids coming in, and you can tell when a coach has been just puppet mastered all over them, because it's like they're afraid to even answer a question. Like, they think they're going to answer it wrong. And I say, there's no wrong answer here. I genuinely want to know what you felt, compare it or bridge it with what I see, and then we can start to meet in the middle. And it's the communication thing that, Joey, I think I've heard you say that probably 3 or 4 times at least in the times we've had together, where that's what good coaches do, is they communicate. And they communicate, like you said earlier, at their level. We got to meet them where they're at. We can't just, hey, I've done this for 18 years. I'm whatever, I know what I'm doing, or whatever you say. The only thing I know is that I don't know. And I'm the first guy to say that to anybody. They'll ask, what do you know? I'm like, the only thing I know is that I don't know. And I'm okay with not knowing, because I'm good at troubleshooting and finding solutions like we talked about, but it's not about me anymore. It's about, can I get a kid to realize that he has the capability to make this adjustment all on his own? And sometimes it's actually just teaching them the right questions to ask. Hey, what's right about this situation? Most people are going to say, hey, what's wrong with this situation? Hey, whatever. And it's like, well, hey, what's right about this situation here? And it's not like we're sugarcoating it. We're choosing to filter out the BS and take in the stuff that's useful, because that's life, right? Like, how much stuff just automatically goes your way every day?
Yeah.
In life, very little, right? It's like, I mean, whatever there's so many things that can go on in your day, but it's like, I can have that mindset about, okay, what's right here? Now I got something to move forward with, instead of, if I just take all the BS and I'm a victim here, that's not it.
Yeah, that's right. I love that.
We use the phrase like, that's a good miss. That is a really good miss. You're trying to do something really hard in sports. You did everything right. You just didn't get a result. That's a good miss. Or you did one thing right. The only thing that we were focusing in on, you did that right. Good miss. I don't care if you swing and miss. Your only focus was this. And we did it. We felt it. Now we got to repeat it and apply it. Now let's start looking to see if we can do something a little different. Like, that's understanding that you're going to miss, and having good misses and bad misses are key. And understanding both. Right? This is a bad miss. This is our only focus. Don't let the ball dictate what we're trying to focus on. Now, there's sometimes where we are focusing on the ball, right? So that's when we kind of really lock it in. But like, if I'm focusing on staying grounded longer, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you make the weirdest, most awkward swing you've ever had. Stay grounded. See what happens. Understanding that's a good miss. Okay, cool. Now let's start to build it into your game swing.
Yeah, I love that. That's it. That's the deal, right? 100%, right? When guys can buy into working on one thing at a time, their success just goes through the roof, right? It's like, And that's always fun too, right? When you have a kid that or a guy that gets that, and they're like, I don't care where this goes. I don't care this. I'm just trying to feel this. Like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you're done.
Yeah.
Let me know when you want to
Like
do the next thing.
we'll joke with the college guys because they'll think a little bit more, and you can start seeing them and think a little bit more, and it's like they'll hit one and it'll be like awful, like it's like, whoa, what was that? And they're like, I don't know. So no, what was your focus there? And they'll tell you the focus. Then you're like, love it, go with that. Not if you capped it or what you rolled over, or you swung a miss. Like, what was your thought there? Because I can see the wheels turning, and I can see you starting to apply something. Now we're moving the right direction. Now the ball's going to start doing what you want it to do.
Love
And the
that.
swing's going to start doing what you want it to do.
That's right. That's great. Well, and so this has just kind of resonated with me. So this would just, so for like, maybe a kid, right? Probably like a player specifically, right? But then also maybe a parent that their kid is in a situation, right, where that is going to be like this, right? So what would y'all's advice be to these two groups of people, right, where their coach isn't like that, right? Their coach is maybe the opposite of what they believe in hitting wise, or their communication isn't important to them, right? They're maybe doing the opposite of what we're talking about, right? What would be y'all's, wisdom and advice from that as far as troubleshooting for kids? Like, 'cause that's hard, man. That's hard. Like what 16-year-olds get asked to deal with some of these coaches aren't bad people, right? But just like some of the things that they expect them to do is just impossible for a 16-year-old, 20-year-old to do whatever it is, right? So I'd love to hear y'all's advice on that too.
We try and disguise it a little bit. Usually what we see here is more really high expectations and then different terminology, right? So if I can get what the coach uses, we can flip it to what we use. So if I'm thinking, hey, if he's a big, like, hey, you got to swing down to it. Okay, well, what this means based on your miss is you're changing posture. So what you need to do is you just need to try and maintain your posture a little bit more. So trying to take key phrases that they use and then sync them up with what we use. So when he says this is what it means for us. Or when he wants us to do this is what it means. Because a lot of times when we see the too high of expectations is that their game plan doesn't match what they want them to do. Right? They want them to score 9 runs a game, but they want them to hit, run, sack, bunt, stuff. They're not playing for the big inning. So now we have to find a way to do both, right? So now, all right, he wants you to be really good at situational hitting. All right, well, you got to run on second. He wants you to hit a ground ball at second base. But what that means for us, we're going to take a shot at hitting a double to right center. But if we miss, now we got to play his game and get the runner over because it's still a team game. We still got to do our job, right? So, but we're not going to put the handcuffs on just yet. We're going to take our shot. If we foul it off, we're going to have a grown-up approach. Well, we got to have the grown-up side of it too, where we make the adjustment, right? Now, I'm not telling you to hit rollovers to third because you're trying to come unglued. You're just taking your approach and now shifting it. Now I'm going to try and hit my double, my home run to right center. All right, I missed. I fouled off 0-1, didn't get a pitch to do it on, whatever it may be. Now let's settle back in and go, boom, I'm going to do my job. That, to be honest, that was Manny's biggest thing back in the day. That's why he had over 100 RBIs every year. He would take a shot, and then he'd be okay taking his ground ball second for the RBI. That's hitting. That's being a good hitter. And it's understanding when to kind of choose to take your shot and then when you got to play the other way too. So there's ways to do it. It's being able to use their words in a different way. And
so you stole words right out of my mouth. That's what I was going to say, be a translator, because a lot of times, and you said it at the beginning too, but it's like, if you give people the benefit of the doubt, most coaches that are coaching are trying to help kids, right? There are exceptions, and you'll run into them here and there, but a majority of the time guys are trying to help. So if guys are having a hard time translating what they say, a lot of times it's the same thing where it's like, okay, what did he say? Okay, this is actually what he means. Or this is how we would translate that into what we've been working on, and it's very rarely, if you're giving people the benefit of the doubt, is there a need to play victim or to blame game, where it's like, you get guys, it's like, did you just have a bad day, or are you just upset with the coach? because sometimes you had a bad day and you're just looking to blame somebody. I'm not playing that game with you. I'm not going to go into that and start saying, oh, he this. If it's a practice thing and they continue like, hey, coach, they said they didn't like the way I do this. And then a lot of times it's like, okay, well, that's actually the same thing we're working on. It's a different way of saying it.
Right.
So then it kind of, let's say expands their palate. Like, like now they understand what that means in that context, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with visualization. Like, okay, what does that actually mean? How do we identify that?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you got to tell them just, hey, it goes in one ear and out the other, and keep doing what you know is best.
Yeah.
Sometimes coaches are just talking because they're nervous. Some guys have a very hard time just sitting back and watching a baseball game without saying something. So sometimes just understand that their own nervousness is coming out. So instead of buying into that, stay with what worked for you. We call it roots. Stick with your roots. Now, if we never built those roots, we couldn't tell them to stick to them.
Yeah.
So obviously we have had to have some communication and relationship built before that with the trust we were talking about earlier. But
yeah, that's good. And I think a lot of college guys face that, right, in general. And I think it's challenging, right? It's challenging to give a 19-year-old the silent treatment about this, that, and the other, expecting that he's gonna make this huge jump, right? Or he's gonna respond, or he's gonna do this. And it's like, man, like, I get it. I totally, I get it, right? Sometimes you're just doing stuff to get a reaction. Like, that's good. Like, I'm fine with that. But, so I think it's important for guys to know that, like, really what it comes down to, I think, is removing yourself from the right, wrong game, right? Playing a bigger game than that. Because it's like, if you're always in that game, you're just tumultuous, right? You either feel really good or you feel really crappy. And in reality, like, baseball is such a game of attrition that it can't be just that way, right? It's got to be a bigger game than that, because if people don't understand, right, if I constantly tell you what's wrong, yeah, you're just what's gonna dominate your cerebral activity is the wrong, right? Nothing else. It's the wrong. And so not everybody understands that, right? It's okay, right? So I think it's like, as a player, right, or somebody in that situation, I think it's super important to just understand, like, he's talking to me, she's talking to me because they care, right? Well, they may care about the team, they may care about me, maybe a little bit. Hopefully it's both, right? But they're trying to help me. Now, is what they're saying helping me? Maybe not. But if I can hear it instead of a right, wrong, at least some of them do it wrong, hear it as encouragement in a convoluted way, right? Like, if you'll do this right, this will help you, right? That in a weird, twisted way, that's wanting the best for someone, right? That's encouraging someone. So I think just the ability to, like, hey, he may be a dick, right? Or he may be this, but, like, you can really filter how you hear things. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, right? There's going to be sometimes they're going to get in and dome you up and screw you, like, screw you.
Yeah, we're still
right?
dealing with humans here. Yeah, we're
Exactly. So, but it's like the ability to hear, hey, like, they care. So that's a positive. I can take that. Sorry, Joey, go ahead.
No, I think as a player, you need to understand that, kind of lack of better words, is like, your head coach doesn't have to be your coach. Understanding that if you have a guy on staff that you automatically relate to and that you favor, that's the guy you play for. Head coach is just the manager. He's just choosing the lineup, right? I'm not saying you're going to be disrespectful, but understanding that you don't have to be best buds and have a really good player-coach relationship with the head coach. As long as you have a relationship with a teammates and a coach, you're going to be fine. You have somebody that you can lean on, like, especially if the coach is just on top of you nonstop, have somebody that you can go to and be like, listen, like, what's going on? Like, what am I doing? And that way you don't have to have that, especially as a young kid, especially as a freshman going into a college, where it's like, hey, I need somebody to lean on, and try and be, hey, can, like, me and you just kind of work, and, you handle that situation, not, it's like, hey, always my head coach, got to play for him. You don't. You got to play for the guys next to you, and you got to play for a coach that you like. It doesn't have to be the head guy.
Mhm.
You know, and I mean, realistically thinking more along the lines of pitchers, like how often are they spending time with the head coach? You know, they have their pitching coach. That needs to be their guy, you
Yeah.
know, that they can go to, or have a support system in the bullpen, their guy that they work with nonstop. And then the head coach or managers, but just he puts them in the game, gives them the opportunity, you know, and that's, I didn't figure that out until later. Till realistically, till I got into college, because I had a really good high school coach that I blended with, I meshed with, and even in travel. It's understanding that I like him a lot better. Not that I don't like him, but I like him a lot better. That's going to be my guy that I talk to, that I text with, that, you know, I can let things out that are frustrating me without feeling any kind of repercussion. You know, and that's when when I went back as a student assistant, that was the role that I tried to play is, I'm trying to get a job here at Georgia, but I want to be y'all's, you know, like players union. I want to be your rep of telling them, hey, listen, this is kind of the vibe we're getting in the dugout or in the locker room. This is what guys are wanting to try and see. Is it something that we can maybe do? You know, and find that where it's now everybody's in the same boat, you know, working for one guy instead of there's so many different clicks and orders, you know. It's finding the fact that, like, hey, I've got a dude here. I really like him. That's going to be the guy that I want to impress. The other guy's just riding the lineup. And sometimes it is the head coach, you know, so understanding that you don't have to impress the entire staff. Just pick one or two guys.
Yeah, that's wisdom. That's such wisdom. And I think too, just understanding on a lot of college programs, the head, especially in like the bigger realms, right, or baseball matters. A lot of times the head coach is kind of like CEO, right? They've got this multi-million-dollar budget to oversee. They've got all these other things that they do. And so, you know, if you're a college guy, right, or something like that, you don't necessarily know what is, but when you work for a company, very few people know the CEO. They may see his face and wave at him and, you know, this, that, and the other, but very few people know or have influence with that, right? And it's not necessarily, I don't think CEO and head coach are complete synonyms, right? But there is some added elements, right? So it's understanding, hey, like, yeah, like he has to run this stuff, right? He has to go to the booster dinners and he has to do this and he has to do all these things that you don't see or understand, right? So like understanding that and then finding that guy that you can connect to, right? That's all that matters, right? And I think that not even necessarily finding somebody to connect with that you agree with completely, but just somebody who has your back, right? And you feel like they have your back. That's the biggest thing, right? So I think that's a huge piece there's a lot of guys struggle with, right? Like Joey's, you know, talked to our college guys a lot, our college group guys a lot about that. It's just dealing with that, because that's what all of them are dealing, just about every single one of them's dealing with, is they don't speak even close to the same language, and he's telling me to do this, and so I'm trying to do this, and then I'm sawing off and I'm doing here, and you know, like it's hard, right? Because as naturally people want to please other people, especially people in influence, right? And so it's just learning how to funnel that in. I don't have to do exactly what they're saying. I have to produce results, right? So I'm going to hear them encouraging me, or I'm going to hear them like knowing the guy got my back, right? The liaison, right? The guy, like, and then I'm going to go produce those results, because I want the results more than anybody, right? But then it's like looking at the coach, it's like, man, you're an asset. As bad as that sounds, and some, you know, I'm sure I know both of y'all experience this in pro ball too. It's like, look, you're an asset, and if the cost doesn't outweigh the benefit, that if that's messed up, then you're out. Just,
Yeah, you're gone.
You're gone. It's just how it is, right? And so I think that's a big shift that needs to happen, right? And I think it can help people for sure. So, but well, Joe, I wanted to ask you one more thing, one more question. You can talk on this however long you want to. So I think you've got a really good grasp on how to funnel competition, right? I know you're an extremely competitive person just by nature, but I think you've got a really good grasp on like how to funnel that. as a player, a coach, or a person, right? I think you do a really good job with that. So, like I know we talked about before, like, hey, having competition in BP or having competition here, having just raising that constant, growing and growing and growing. So like talk a little bit about that. I just kind of love to hear kind of how you like develop that and how people could, not that, because everybody's competitive, right? But it's like, how do I funnel it, right? Because I think a lot of people inappropriately funnel it to the wrong places.
Yeah. So for me, like you said, I've always been competitive. So my last year of pro ball, I was put on the dreaded Phantom 14-day where you're not hurt, but you're on the DL. And, so I wasn't competing in games. Guaranteed 14 days. I'm in Turks in the dugout, chilling. And like I got to like day 2 or 3, and I was like, oh my God, like what now what? So I started having games with myself in the cage. And then I would have a task every time I took BP. Right. So, and I still had all my RE work, still was doing my work, but I had a goal every day in BP. This is what I was going to do. Okay. I'm setting myself today, I want 80% barrels, gap to gap. And then so I would go through that. I would have that. Cool. And that just allowed me to compete without having umpires, being able to go, all right, cool. I've got to have something to do or I'm going to lose my mind, being able to keep that move going, and then the next day, like, all right, listen, I'm feeling kind of good. I'm going to see if I can run a couple balls out of the ballpark and still keep that 80% barrel mark, and this is just going off feel. We didn't have, TrackMan or FlyScope or anything out there, registering, oh, he hit it 105. It's like, all right, boom, barrel, that ball's hit hard. Cool. So being able to find just games within the game to keep everything going. And then we do it very similar in the facility is, if you have a 60-minute lesson or a session or 90, whatever it may be, 45 minutes, we're going to get you right. We're going to prepare. And then the last 15 minutes, we're going to run it like at bats. So we're going to run it where we got machine, we foul a ball off. I want you to step out. You have 11 seconds to reflect and then react, right? So we're going to basically reflect, then we're going to respond to it. Okay. So we take 11 seconds. If you need less, you need less. But if you rush it and then you miss again, I'm going to double your time. So now you have 22 seconds. I'm going to force you to slow down to make your adjustments. And we're still counting barrels during all of this. Right. So being able to commit to a swing and having 100% commitment to your swing after you miss is where we make our money. Being able to adjust, and it's just off of machine, being able to adjust to it, then boom. All right, now next guy. So now you got to sit for a minute. Whatever you do, you have no rules. You can do whatever you want for that minute. Okay, so he's going through his round, or 3 or 4 guys are going through their round. Then you got to come back up. Now you get one swing. So now you have to lock it in for one swing. Doesn't have to be the first pitch. You get one swing to get a barrel. If you miss, you're out. Next guy comes in. So it's kind of like a king of the hill type deal where we kind of work through it. And it's giving these guys an opportunity to compete and practice, compete in training. And then once they actually compete in a game, it's the same thing. They don't have a completely different feeling. They don't get overwhelmed with competition, right? Oh, it's game day. I got to get hyped. No, you have 135 minutes. So let's understand what that feeling is and keep that feeling, not we play every Saturday or it's kickoff on Sunday, right? So we don't have that we don't need that hype. We compete 6 days a week. We take a day off, right? The only thing you can't do is you can't take a day off on a game day, right? So it's understanding we're creating a feeling. We're not trying to hype ourselves up, right? I understand when I have to compete. Now I understand how to compete. Okay, whether you love winning or hate losing, it doesn't matter. Just know how to compete. Mm-hmm. So understanding what they need to do to get into that mind frame and keep it. Because we don't want a lot of peaks and valleys, right? We don't want to be really high, really low. And understanding how to compete when you're having a really bad day. That's my favorite. Is you can have a guy who is brutal for 45 minutes But once we flip it over and that light bulb goes off and he just worries about competing, is when the athlete comes out and he knows it's a gamer, right? That's where the term comes from, right? Lights are on, this guy's going to play. But understanding it shouldn't take us to flip the lights on for you to compete. Compete with you, right? Hold yourself accountable, not what your buddies do. So we try and keep it, I guess you can call it educational for as long as possible. And then guys want to compete. Guys want to have fun with what they're building. They're building a car, now they want to go race it. We just don't want to continue to build the car and not give them the keys, right? But understanding how to drive the car comes first, right? Here, you've built a swing. You built a swing that goes 0 to 100 really quick. Now let's go home that and have fun with it. But it shouldn't take Georgia, Alabama, LSU in the stands for you to be able to compete. It could be mom and grandma in the stands. You should compete the same way. It's playing the game the right way is what it is. It's having pride in what you do and having pride in what you're prepared to do. That's kind of where we are trying to do our best job of making sure that we don't just come in here and teach for an hour and a half and then, all right, see you later. Go have fun. It's all right. We're going to teach for an hour and then you're going to have fun for 30 minutes. And we're miking up all the pro guys this off season, because once we do some kind of competition is when, they start betting, Chipotle lunch, nothing crazy, but they start jabbing at each other and start talking, and they have fun. Guys think that, talking trash to each other in practice is a negative. And some of it is as far as the environment they're in. I want you to talk trash. Do it. Get at your teammate, because all you're doing is getting them better. Mm-hmm. You're having fun and getting them better. Now, we're not throwing any low blows, but we can have fun with it,
Yeah.
So it's just finding that what they relate to and how they relate to competing, and then kind of expanding that for them. Because if you're just waiting on game day to compete, you've missed the boat. You may be in the 4th inning and you're like, oh, I got to compete now. Instead of competing as soon as the game starts, or BP, or during the week, like understanding that if you compete for 15 minutes a day and something, and you compete, by the time game comes, you could be a full day up on somebody of just straight competition without playing a game. 20 minutes a day, whatever it may be. And being able to apply it immediately. Now with the cool thing is now with these kind of more on the pro programs is they have more machines now. So guys are getting live at bats before the game even starts. They're able to set it up. Hey, I'm facing, he just broke his wrist, but Chris Sale, I'm going to set a machine up, at almost a second baseman and let's compete against a slider. I don't care about the mechanics. I'm going to get 15 pitches. I'm going to see what I can do. Then I'm going to go play again. So now I feel like I've already competed and they haven't even thrown the first pitch yet. While other guys are still getting warmed up to play. I compare it to golf. You have a lot of golf, like especially amateur golfers, are really good on the back nine and are awful on the front nine. Well, it's because you didn't do what you're supposed to get ready to play the front nine. And it could be just as not important to you, but it still applies. How can I turn my competitive juices on immediately, ride the wave, and then turn it off?
Yeah, I love that. And I think what you've talked about this, and there's actually a Dansby talked about the same thing. I was like, hey man, Joey talked about that first.
Yeah.
But it was
make sure he quotes me next time.
Yeah, that's facts. I'll make sure. I'll send it. I'll shoot it. I'll text it. But it was essentially like, and I think this is where the competition and training yourself with the competition with what Joey's talking about shows up, right? But essentially, what Joey was talking about was like, hey man, like if you don't see a guy, like take your 1 for 4. Right, like take your single over the second baseman's head. Take your single between the shortstop and third baseman. Take your single that is 78 hops up the middle. Right, like take it. Right, when you see a guy like take advantage of it. Right, like now it's time for like, hey, I'm gonna be able to. I'm gonna compete here. Right, knowing that I see well. Right, but it's understanding that like And I think Zing did this to a lot of people. Zing made a lot of people look feel uncomfortable because all his stuff is just filth. But like
sinkers and sliders, I guess. But
yeah, sinkers and sliders like starting around us and at below 3/4. But like, yeah, like I think that's where it shows up, right? Where it's like I don't see this guy well, my timing's not great, but like I'm gonna compete. And if my competing that day is scratching across something, right? Like I'm gonna do it because like I just feel like too oftentimes people define competition too finely, right? As like my only measure of success is if I go 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and a home run. And in reality, that's just never doesn't happen.
Because somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose.
That's right.
Like, just like you're talking, we play head chess, where it's like, so if I got 2 guys, or if it's with me or whatever, at the end of playing catch, it's 2 points for the head, 1 point for the chest. First guy to 10 wins, right? If there's 2 guys, one guy's winning, one guy's losing, and that's reality.
Yeah. And like that's and that's how it shows up, right? It's one of those boring things, right? Like you can have fun with it, right? But if like you're by yourself or you're doing this, it can be boring, right? But it's like that's where it shows up because it's like, hey, like I'm not gonna hit a home run off of this guy. I'm not gonna hit a big time double off this guy because like I don't see him and I'm uncomfortable and he knocked me down, he's hit me in the head, like and he's throwing sinkers and sliders, like I don't see him well. So I'm gonna take my 1 for 4 and I'm gonna have good at bats for the guys behind me too. That was something that Joey talked about when he mentioned this. Yeah, it's like, and that's one of those things, right, where I feel like if the old school guys, whatever that means, right, like if they would explain it in that context, more people, more kids would buy into that. And it's like, hey, I'm not asking you to hit backside ground balls. I don't even like them. Like I hate them, right? But it's like, hey, like if you're struggling and the best, you can't see this guy at all, and you take it there because that's about all you're going to get anyway. That's competing, right? And it's like, yeah, the goal is to hit the ball over the fence every single time, right? Like that's the goal, right? But the reality is competition and being competitive shows up in that instance, right, Joe? I don't know if you want to hit on that at all, but I just wanted to throw that.
So yeah, I mean the way I related to it, and still do, is like for me, competing is playing. It's not work. I don't like to pressure wash my driveway. That is work. But I love to compete. I can play. I can do anything when I'm enjoying it and I'm competing. I'm playing a game. I'm not working. Now it takes the same effort, right? It's just changing the mindset to work as being negative and competing as positive, right? So when I compete, I play. When I work, it's negative. I don't want to do it, right? So it's not as important to me. You know, it's understanding that both of them are going to take the same effort. One you're going to enjoy a lot more than the other one. So let's just stay in this side of it where we talk more about competing and less about working. Now, you do have to prepare. I know it all comes with it, but competing takes the same amount of effort as it does to work. One, you're just going to be in a really good headspace, and one, you're going to be in a really bad headspace. And I can tell you right now, if I'm working, my quality product isn't going to be the same as if I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm competing. I understand what it takes to compete. I understand that the work it takes to put in to compete, right? I can live in that bubble. Now my quality of work goes up. My effort's going to go up, and I'm enjoying what I do. So now I can leave on a good note and not just feel like, cool, glad that's over. Glad I don't have to do that again. Glad I don't have to pressure wash my driveway for another 9 months or whatever it may be, right? It's like, all right, cool, let's go back. I want to go back. Like, I want to do that again. That was fun. I want to do that again. I want to go compete. I need something to get me going, right? When can I do that again? Instead of, oh, we got to do that again, huh? Right?
It's almost like get to and have to too, right? I think Brian King talks about that, where it's like a get to versus I have to. And that's a mindset, once again, where it's like you're shifting your thinking versus, you know, you're not going to change what's happening.
Right.
That's right. And I think it shows up in so many veins, right? And so I just think that's the first time Joey talks about that, I was like, man, I love that. And so I just wanted to make sure it got brought up because I think it's it's a really cool thing, and it's super important, and all that.
I think
So,
play too allows us more freedom, like to experiment too, where it's like sometimes when it's like, okay, I got to work, it's like versus like play, it's like I can kind of do all this other stuff, but it still allows me to compete at that high level, you know, because the best guy, it is play ball. It's not work ball.
That's right. That's good. I love that.
Play ball.
Not
I
work
mean,
ball.
Joey teed that one up, so you know, you guys teed that one up.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Not
That's
a
so...
PO today. Yeah.
That's great. Well, Joey, man, you're awesome, man. I love when we get to talk, and I'm glad other people get to listen and hear all that stuff, man. So, man, you're a gem, and I'm super appreciative. I know you wanted to do the part 2, right? But I appreciate the time again, because I know we're all got a lot going on and families and all that stuff, man. So you're awesome, and man, yeah, everybody check him out on Instagram, right? He does a lot of stuff, but he's doing a lot of other stuff too. Just if you get a chance, just, you know, reach out to him, just get to know him. He's just a great guy. So they're on Instagram at the Hit Lab LLC. But like I said, they do a whole lot more than that, and stuff like that too. So Joey's just a great guy. And I love that I get to have a friendship with him. So, man, thank you so much for just the time and then just the open-handedness, man. It was such a privilege to just be a part of and listen to it. Man, you're the man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Hey, make sure you watch our Nolansville boys on Little League World Series. They just won. They're heading to Williamsport. Excuse me.
That's awesome, man. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. So yeah, man, you're awesome, brother. And Zing, you're the man as always, my dude. So
thank you, brothers.
Appreciate you guys.
Awesome.
Thank y'all.
All right, y'all. Talk at you soon.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure you were able to get a lot out of that. So because of that, make sure that you share this, right? Make sure that you put it out on social media, on your stories. Make sure that you subscribe, give us a 5-star review, because our passion is to see the game grow, and our passion is to see you become the best baseball or softball player that you can. So go ahead and do that for us, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode.